Right, this is Sense, and I'm reviewing Sonic the Hedgehog. I just got out of seeing this movie maybe an hour ago. Didn't have too much time, didn't take too much time to mull over it and think it through, but I do think I've got my review, so I'm ready to go. So this was I mean, right off the bat, I don't think anyone who's seen this movie had any like it's Jim Carrey's movie. His acting, his scenes, so many, like if this is a typical story, you would not spend nowhere near this amount of time focusing on a villain, especially when half the stuff he's doing is not really important to the overall story, but it's just that more interesting and fun to watch because you're just seeing Jim Carrey be funny, be over the top, all this physical humor, all this other stuff he was doing. I think it was good. I think it was great because I mean Jim Carrey's fun to watch. He's been in a lot of movies. I mean, not every single movie he's in is great, but I have to say generally I do consider him to be a highlight of most movies I've seen him in. And here he was again a huge highlight. Not to say anything about Ben Schwartz playing Sonic or voicing Sonic. That was also very good. Definitely had some good emotional moments, and I think a pretty good performance overall. I mean, we didn't really need to see Sonic flossing, but hey, move that aside. It was a pretty good performance. And James Marsden did a good job as well with his character. His character wasn't that interesting, but it was still pretty good. I normally like to say something a little bit about the visuals and all this other stuff. In terms of visuals, it was a pretty good movie. Nothing too crazy. I did definitely notice some scenes where people were supposed to be talking to Sonic and their eyes were not looking where he was standing, which is understandable. You're dealing with people like they just probably didn't have the stand in the proper spot or something. They were looking a little off. Which I mean, it stood out to me because I'm a film person. I don't think it will stand out to most people in the audience. It wasn't too far off. It wasn't like the characters standing there looking all the way over there or something. But it was definitely that thing where you're like, if you're talking to Sonic, why are you looking down and over here? You're looking at his shoulder the whole time, kind of thing. So I will point that out. But in terms, that's the only real negative in terms of camera choice, camera angles and stuff like that. I thought it was all pretty good. I enjoyed it. Nothing really stood out too much. We had slow-mo scenes made popular by Quicksilver in the past, which they were good. I don't know. Even with Quicksilver, I didn't find them the most fun scenes everyone else did. They were just kind of okay in my opinion. But hey, they're popular. I don't hate them. You know, you can't. They're not really anything wrong with them. I did think it was kind of weird. We had Sonic being able to hit the super speed bursts sometimes, and they seem to imply that Eggman was able to keep up. I guess I'm just not going to go bothering with spoilers. Just jumping in. But he's kind of able to keep up because he was using Sonic's quill, which is cool. But they didn't expressly talk about that, so it was a little weird to me. Like, yeah, at times you felt, oh, so he's going that fast. He's going extremely fast in this moment. But then other times, I don't know, he doesn't seem like he's going that fast. Sonic himself seems to have multiple speeds, so I wasn't sure whether Eggman was actually keeping up, which is kind of weird. Because, I don't know, Eggman being as fast as Sonic is kind of a weird thing to do. I don't think they were really doing that, but it was still, I don't know. It wasn't, in my opinion, explained super clearly, but that's not really a big deal. Kind of just a little minor thing to talk about. So yeah, visuals, music-wise, I was kind of hoping to have a little bit more Sonic music. There could have been some in there from like some games I'm not familiar with, but I'm still sitting here trying to hear some of the tracks I really remember. Maybe a little Live and Learn thrown in there just for the fun of it. I don't know. I didn't stay through the whole credits. Maybe they played it after that, but that's all I can really say about music, I guess. Music, visuals, editing was, nothing too crazy, nothing too spectacular. I did kind of hope it would do something a little bit more stylish, but I mean, it is somewhat of a straightforward kids movie in a way, so they weren't doing anything too stylish with it. In terms of story, the story is pretty straightforward. Again, I hate to keep calling it a kids movie in that sense, but it is. It's a straightforward, this happens, that happens, this happens, that happens. Everybody's story arcs and everything are laid out to you from the very beginning, so you knew where they're going to end up. Right off the bat, they basically, the straightforward jump into Sonic is lonely. So you pretty much know, okay, so he's not going to be lonely by the end of the movie. You got that there. We jump right, there's a couple scenes pretty early in the movie, in my opinion, where Sonic's talking to, Tom. I believe it's Tom. It is Tom, and he kind of just lays out the whole lesson that Tom's going to learn throughout the movie, and Tom can't really refute it. So it was a weird, not real journey in my opinion, because Tom was already borderline about to be where he ended up in the movie right off the beginning. So I don't know. That was just a little weird in my opinion. But I think that's just how a lot of kids movies go. They're not expecting huge leaps, so your characters are not really going to change a whole lot through the course of the movie. It was pretty straightforward. Robotnik, Eggman, he was the most interesting. Again, though, it wasn't because of particularly a personality or story arc or he changed throughout the movie or anything, but he just was more fun to watch on screen, see him interact, see him say stuff. He had like a lot of good one-liners. I think in terms of story, that's what not in terms of story, but in terms of script, that's what I have to say. They did a lot of good jokes in my opinion. I'm not normally the biggest comedy movie fan because I generally I generally just don't find them as funny. They make all these situations, and I don't find big embarrassing moments that funny. I don't find slapstick all that funny unless it's 100% just one scene of slapstick. That's completely different than everything else. Then it's funny, like it's out of nowhere. But if it's just, I don't know, there's a whole lot of stuff I just don't find funny that people put in comedy movies normally. This time, I felt like they did some good stuff in there. Just I guess because I enjoyed absurdist humor. So situations where two characters going back and forth doesn't make any sense. Going back to stuff like Ocean's 11, where you're like, this dialogue wouldn't happen in the real world. But it's funny because just imagine some people actually trying to pull off that dialogue in the real world is what makes it so funny to me. I don't know why. So some of this dialogue Eggman was having, and Tom came in and he said something about, I was solving these crazy formulas while you were still throwing up formula. And he's like, I don't know, just that kind of back and forth I found to be pretty funny. And then another funny point, he immediately turned around and was like, well, rubbing my orphan face, just stuff like that. It's just like, who would say that? And why would you just say it randomly? Like, I don't know, I just found it hilarious. So there was definitely some good humor there. And there was a few good, I guess more slapstick, pratfall kind of humor stuff. A little bit of toilet humor. I don't know. I felt like it pretty much for the most part worked. So I'd say that's where this movie really excels, having some good action scenes, having not that spectacular, but some good action scenes, having some good humor with the characters and their dialogues and interactions was pretty good. I will say the story itself is somewhat of a here's an action scene, here's a dialogue character scene, here's an action scene, here's a dialogue character scene, here's an action, here's that. Like, it was very, very noticeable that you were going back and forth between the two. So in my opinion, it made it somewhat choppy. Like, I feel like we could have mixed them a little bit more. But again, I feel like that's better than a lot of action movies I've seen, especially in the last few years, where they really just neglect all character moments and just action, and then they try slipping some dialogue into some action scene here and there to kind of work, and it just doesn't. You just need at least a few sit down, have our characters talk about what happened to them and how they're feeling about them. If you're not going to do that, you gotta show it somehow or the other. If you're not going to have them say it, you gotta have to show it. And most action movies are pretty poor at doing that. So I felt like this was a good one for having those moments of just sitting there and talking and really emphasizing it. Personally, felt like we're being beat over the head a little bit with Sonic's character arc, but it was there and it was done properly, so I do not mind. So I think that's roughly it. I definitely noticed, a few jokes, a few references for, like Eggman had bad nicks written in his, basically it was written in his lab. I enjoyed seeing that in there. The guy who's like, oh, there's this blue devil, and then he showed that Sonic image. Again, it's not super out there. They're not really throwing at you too much, but just like a little reference, a little shot there. I appreciated them. I thought they were either funny or interesting or nice to see them there. Obviously, the behind the scenes, the after credit scenes were also pretty good. Not going to really spoil those in case you want to watch those. But yeah, I think that about wraps it up. I think I'm going to give this movie a 4 out of 5. Yeah, I think I'll give it a 4 out of 5. It wasn't the most, I feel like they could have really pushed, they could have gone a lot further, they could have done a whole lot, but again, it was really solid, very entertaining. Again, I think it comes down to that dialogue that just really, and of course seeing Jim Carrey dance, that's what does it. So that's my review of Sonic the Hedgehog.